He deserved the raise, and so did you, but you didn't get it, and he did.
Welcome. You're listening to Nuditea, a podcast where we get naked with our feelings while drinking tea. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Wendy, and on this podcast we talk about adult feelings, travel, food, just all sorts of things. We're not limited, guys. This episode, we wanted to talk about little misogynistic things that we have experienced in life. All of our stories are just a compilation of things that have happened over time. I believe we have them categorized, and we're just gonna have a little chat about it.
Just as a disclaimer off the bat, when we say men in this episode, it's generalization. We obviously are not attributing this to all men. And it's more not your obvious, like, obviously this is misogynistic. They're sometimes subtler.
So we talked about this beforehand, and we haven't experienced anything huge or major that maybe some other women have gone through, but we think it's important to address the more subtle, forms of sexism in our society so that we can just kind of air this out and make everyone aware of the little things that we catch that men might not know that they're doing or that are going on. Yeah. So let's go over first. What are we drinking today? Kim, you traitor, not even drinking tea, although it's
kind of warm,
30 degrees.
And I didn't want to. Can you say what it is? Because I already forget.
So this is Jamaica. I brought back a powder mix pack thing from Mexico when I went. How do you like it?
It's good. It's a little bit apple juicy. It's not apple juice, obviously, but it has...
I gotta say, this is the first time I've tried the instant pack of it. The Jamaica in Mexico did not quite taste like this. It was a little more floral. So Jamaica is like a hibiscus flower drink.
Mm-hmm. But you're also drinking something else.
Yes,
we're double fisting.
Yeah, my body doesn't tolerate cold drinks very well, so I'm double fisting this Jamaica with an apple cranberry tea.
So, starting with customer service. Customer service is just a shit job to begin with. When you're, in the fast food or clothing industry, for sure, you're kind of treated like the scum of the earth. But besides that, you do, as I've experienced as a female, you deal with very subtle misogyny or being hit on that you can't really deal with because you're supposed to be helping the customer out and you don't want to cause a scene and you just want to get them processed through and all that. Yeah. So I've been experiencing it on a small scale since I worked my first job at Tim Hortons back when I was from 16 to 18 years old. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a retirement community. So there's a lot of old guys who come through, regulars. Some regulars were very sweet. You learn to sparse out the ones that are being creepy and the ones who are literally being nice, but they don't really know how to gauge that because of their generation and all that. You're just talking to them and they'll say comments and you're just yep. But you're just hoping that you're okay, I'm just gonna make the coffee as fast as possible and I'm gonna hope there's a line behind them. It's the only time you're hoping for a line.
Please so get out.
Please leave. I don't really have specific phrases that they said to me, but it was always there. And since this was my first job and I was trying to gauge how to react to these things, it was just talk to them, you gotta be polite to them, smile, move on. I don't know what it is about men and customer service, but are they trying to test out their material, or do they want to pretend they still have game? But guess what? We are being paid to be nice to you, so
it means nothing.
And some don't realize they're doing it because that's how they would interact with any female when they were probably younger. But at some point, you need to learn to stop doing that. I was also underage. I'm literally 16. I don't understand where it comes from. Do they feel lonely? Is this just something that brightens their day while also just making us feel kind of like shit or dirty?
Some men just like to have their ego stroked a little bit once in a while, especially if they're in a situation where they're older or they're living alone. They don't have a lot of interaction with other people in general, maybe not just women. Mm-hmm. Going out to get a coffee, the pretty girl behind the counter, just a little bit of back and forth, that will sustain their ego until the next time that they have to come back. Not saying that men need this as like sustenance and it nourishes them and keeps them going, but we all want to feel good about ourselves, and sometimes it's done at the expense of another person's feelings.
And I'm not even saying you can't have polite conversation with me while I'm working, because I'm not unreasonable. There's just a time, it was a lot about my eyes. I get a lot of comments on my eyes just because they're blue, I guess, and the color. But as someone who, like, didn't think they were hot shit growing up, looks-wise, it's not like men telling me this was somehow helping me boost my ego. Instead, it just made me feel really kind of, like, creeped out.
Yeah.
So there's the line, maybe they're thinking, like, I'll brighten their day by saying this. We don't want unwanted comments about our physical attraction. Be nice, ask about our day, that's fine, but there's a line, and learn where that line is, basically.
What about compliments like, you know, I always see you here and you're always working so hard. Good for you. Like, that'll give me a nice little energy boost for the rest of my day. What about those compliments?
Compliment my work ethic.
Yes, my brain and my capabilities.
Yes. Another thing that I noticed, my older brother, Lynn, and I worked at Tim Hortons at the same time. I don't know what it is. Obviously, the customer service industry is heavily female. That's been shown. I think it's like 70% is usually female. In the entry level and like higher up jobs, like once you get higher and higher up, it tends to be men who have those positions. But my brother, Lynn, he's a very hard worker. I'm not just saying anything against how he worked. He knows how to multitask. He's great. But since he's one of the very few males who came into that job who could actually do the job, he was praised almost relentlessly. He was so loved. And I go in there, but I'm surrounded by women who can do all this, and they've been doing all this, but because there's so many females who can do this, we don't seem special in any way. So I was doing as I think hard of a job as he was. He also, I think at one point said, like, Kim, I don't know why you don't get the same respect. You literally work harder than me. But maybe I dreamt that. He can verify if he said that or not. And he, while he was there, got 2 raises. And I legit was supposed to get a raise twice because I was there over a year, but then I quit. And then I did it again. And you're supposed to get a raise after a year, but they just kept not getting to my interview, basically.
Cool.
So when he was getting raises, he was still not getting minimum wage. He was on student wage. So I think that was their way of being like, here's some money, but you're still not getting paid as much as our minimum wage workers. So they were probably doing that to be like, you're great, but we're still not going to give you the same amount. So like, it wasn't like all roses and daisies for him, but it happens just kind of anywhere I go with customer service. The men who are good at their jobs, and I'm not saying they're not, just are praised more. And I think that's why they also like kind of go through the ranks and go up, even though it's like you are surrounded by females who work super hard and this comes super naturally to them, and we just kind of stay where we are.
Yes. That's interesting that in an environment where it's mostly females, it's always, I don't know, were the people who were promoting him also male or promoting these other people
They were
also
female.
Male? Okay, there's something strange brewing here. Does it ever feel like because Lynn was one of the only men in the work environment that the females were always like complicating, like complimenting him, kind of almost vying for his attention or like wanting to be on his good side, get in his good books? Lynn's a cutie. Like, and
he is. He's also super nice.
He's very, very nice. So it's like, I think a lot of women would want to be able to interact in a positive way, especially when that's like the only male in your working environment, which is also like a very strange thing that has happened in our society where like men are vying for women's attention, and for some reason women are also vying for the men's attention. And because there's in that environment where it's primarily female, but most of the praise is going towards a male worker, because, you know, we've all been brainwashed and think that men who can multitask are just like top shit. It seems like that's where this promotion energy is coming from, you know? That's super strange.
I think so. I think he deserved the raises. I definitely do. Honestly, they could have thrown me 25-cent raise when I was that age. I was not looking for much. But I'm someone who could do the deli for the front counter and drive-through all by themselves. I was basically cutting out for them to pay a whole extra person. And I'm just like,
that's the thing.
Where's the recognition?
He deserved the raise, and so did you, but you didn't get it, and he did. So, like, I think that's the main takeaway point.
Yes. Wendy also, to add to my long list, I'm not even through customer service yet, Wendy reminded me, I did an interview for a landscape company right after undergrad, so that would have been like 3-4 years ago. And I was working part-time at the anatomy lab, and I really enjoyed that, but it was not obviously the hours that I was hoping for. And so I applied to this job, and like that night he's like, can you meet me tomorrow morning at like Starbucks at like 6 a.m.? It was super stupid early.
Gosh.
And I had to bus down there and all that stuff. But I meet up with him, and right off the bat, it's not really a real interview. He's basically, I had to go out there. He comes in and he's like, just so you know, this is a really like labor intensive job. I usually hire men, blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know what it was. So he's telling me, and I know I'm capable of manual labor. I did it growing up. I'm not always the most active people, and I go in and out of shape like a hobby. But it was just very discouraging. So I'm sitting there and he's making me doubt myself. And Wendy heard me. Like, I came back and I was all like, this is kind of how I felt. And it was so stupid. But I was like, if he's making me feel like this, I don't want to work for him.
Yeah.
But what I hate is, like, did he get a job application that morning or the night of before he said I would meet him? Did he already have someone else, another male, like, lined up? And he was basically discouraging me so I wouldn't want to take the job? Why bring someone all the way out there to be like, pretty sure you probably can't do this, but I'm really desperate, so if you say yes, we'll see what you can do. But so I like left that. I was all like, yeah, I'll think about it. I had a shift at the anatomy lab, and I was doing it there, and I was just thinking it through and talking it out, and I was like, I don't need this. So I just messaged him. I was like, I don't need the job. But it was just, I hate that. He just made an assumption.
And it's almost as if you can't win in that situation, because you don't take the job. Kind of win for you because you don't have to deal with a sexist jerk of a boss, but also kind of a loss for womankind, because it's like, you could have done that job just as well as any other male worker, and you could have shown him up, and it's just like, what, like, how do you win in this situation? Someone has to lose, and it's like, you're protecting yourself from this just unwanted situation. But at the same time, he probably needs an example of women just being able to do jobs the same way men can.
I don't always want to be the example, so
exactly.
It's exhausting. That's
the thing, like, it's a tricky situation. It's like, I need to protect myself, obviously. I don't want to be in an uncomfortable working situation where I'm always looked down upon.
Because if I go into that job and then quit halfway down, that is instilling him, she couldn't keep up.
Further confirmation.
It wouldn't have mattered if I was still doing the physical labor just fine, but I was really just put off by his personality and his sexist demeanor. And he would have seen it as, she quit 'cause she couldn't keep up with the physical labor, instilling his exact ideas.
You did not need that.
The final thing that has to do with customer service, technically I worked with my parents for a bit, and their shop manager was a friend of the family, and I've grown up with him, and I definitely know what he was like before that. He is one of those guys who thinks he's being nice, but he's very creepy or comes off creepy, and comments on women's bodies a bit too much for my liking, and not great. I was around him a bunch, but he didn't say that many creepy things. But I was 20 at this time, and I kind of knew who he was, and it's not like I ever felt unsafe around him. But on my day off, when I went to go do grocery shopping for my mom, I was putting the groceries away, and I was probably eating healthier at that time. I don't know. I fluctuate in weight like all the time, so I don't really notice when it's happening. But he commented, "Oh, Kim, you've lost a lot of weight," or something like that. I'm like, yeah, maybe. I didn't care, because it's like, I don't want compliments from him, because clearly he's like noticing that and feels the need, or feels that I needed that when I didn't, and it just like sets the wrong kind of tone between him, who's clearly like 60 and I'm 20 at the time, and he's kind of always giving off that vibe, and he just the way he interacts or talks to like the other female like coworkers or like the office manager, I'm just like,
We don't need this. Really, men just need to understand we don't need your validation on our physical appearance. If we ask for it, then fine, give it to us, you know? I ask Yangbin how I look all the time, but he's my husband, and he's the only one who's really allowed to comment on my outward appearance unless I ask for it otherwise. Just stop. But also, he's like from a different generation.
He's from a different generation, and I've grown up with him. Yeah, I knew what he was like. And it's one of those things, again, he's being nice, or this is how he thinks that you interact with women. And maybe I take compliments from people who are more my age better, but not always. I'm not someone who like is looking for that. I know that some women like the validation a little bit more, and I understand that, but no.
A lot of us don't.
Yes, a lot of us
There's, you know, it's a mixed population. Women who enjoy that validation, that's fine too, but men need to know their own boundaries a little more, because they can't just assume that all women want this kind of compliment on outward appearance. Also, are both our tongues red? The Micah?
Yeah. I think it's also just, he's 40 years older than me. So it's
that's why. Sometimes it's like, is it just a grandfatherly figure being sweet? It doesn't feel like it. Feels real creepy.
No. It's always hard to gauge in that. So I feel like if someone compliments me, I can be like, oh, thank you. Or if it's a guy, I think if I know them well enough, or I know I'm going to have this interaction with them, I'm someone who's pretty upfront with like my feelings and all that stuff. So I would hope that I can be like, hey, I don't really need that, or can you not say that? If I felt uncomfortable with them saying it, I hope I'm that person. I certainly let things pass because sometimes it's not worth getting into, but...
In recent memory, that has not happened to me at all. I don't think I've received any unsolicited compliments regarding my appearance. I think one of Xiangbin's lab mates was like, oh, I like that you still wear like hair bows in your hair. And that's fine. I feel like that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with a work one because I feel like we're kind of on a work role. So I have also worked in customer service, and I think strangely a lot of my previous jobs until my restaurant job, I've been working under female supervisors. So through housing services at U of T, through Home Folk Mental Health Association, I was always working directly under a female boss. So I don't know, I never felt any sexism in those environments, obviously, because A, was primarily women, and B, my boss was female. So it's just a different kind of environment to work in. But when I did work at the restaurant, I was kitchen staff because I wanted to avoid as much customer service as possible, and I did not want to be a waitress. And I love cooking. So the kitchen job was really great for me, although I did notice there were a lot of things that just annoyed the hell out of me, because when you work at the front counter or when you work online in the kitchen, there are many different tasks that you can handle. There's like the salad/cold side where the oven is, there's a grill side and the hot side, there's a person who works with plating and calling out the chits. Everyone has their different role, and you kind of work up from the bottom. So you start at the salad, and then when they feel like you're really comfortable with taking orders and working generally with non-dangerous like equipment, then they move you to the hot side, and then when they see that you know kind of both sides really well, they move you when they need you to be like calling out orders and working with the chits. So for some reason, I noticed fairly early on that there were only guys working on the hot side and calling out orders, and the salad side was all girls. And for some reason, we did not have the same upward mobility as some of our male coworkers, because those guys would be making salads for like a month and then suddenly they would be put on grill. I was working salads for so long before our boss was like, oh yeah, hey, like I feel like we should get you trained on that side. I'm like, where was this like 8 months ago when everyone else that started working at the same time moved up? I am a far superior salad and dessert maker compared to those male coworkers. They worked hard, but let's be real, I make better salads, okay?
It's because women only eat salads, obviously. So just stick to what we know.
And then eventually I made it to the point where I would be the one in the center of the line calling out orders and working with chits and doing the plating and, you know, organizing so that everyone is on task. And I noticed many, many times when sometimes a male coworker would be checking in to start their shift, and I would be in the middle of like working the orders in the front, and then they would just walk up to the front and be like, oh yeah, so what's going on here? And then suddenly just want to take over calling out orders. I'm like, I'm sorry, there's a prep list in the back, okay? There's a salad side, there's a grill side, there are orders that are currently happening that I have called out. Why don't you try some of that instead of messing with this role, which is very taken care of?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like,
Why would I spend the time to catch you up so that I could then go and do the jobs you clearly just don't want to do?
I think it happened a couple of times, and eventually, sad to say, I kind of just, like, pieced out. I just didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. It was just like, why bother? You know? Like, I'm comfortable working at all stations in the kitchen. If someone needs me for any specific role, I'm able to hop on. Some of those guys, Jesus, their prep work was messy as fuck. Like, every single time we'd have to, like, go back and be like, yo, there's literally a lettuce leaf the size of my entire forearm in the salad bin. Who did this? Oh, look at the initials. That guy. Like, there were so many things where I was just like, you guys are not careful. You guys are kind of bad at multitasking. Mm-hmm. I don't, like,
why are
because
you
you're
on,
not
why are you
trying.
Yeah.
Because you're not trying, clearly.
Yeah.
And yet you feel the right to just step up to the main line and start calling out orders. Mm-hmm. Why? Just why?
Before you talk about the Sea-Doos, I actually completely forgot about Mark's Warehouse.
Oh,
I'll go for it. Okay, so hopping back to Mark's Warehouse, I worked when I was like 21 to 22. Mm-hmm. And some things, obviously with Mark's clothing, there's a lot of technology behind it, so the main thing you have to learn is just all the technology so you can talk to the customers and deal with that. Mm-hmm. So there was one female coworker who was always in work boots or the industrial, and she was great at it. She knew her shit. I honestly hated being back in like the industrial because I didn't feel like I knew enough, basically. But you'll get men coming in here who need boots for a certain job, and she was very prepared and knew what she was talking about. And she'd be like, you need this boot, it has this, 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 and this is what you're working with, so it makes sense, blah, blah, blah. And they were constantly doubting her. And I have very little doubt that's because she was female, because we also had male co-workers that worked back there, and they never reported that people were second-guessing their knowledge on the fact. When she didn't take any shit, and she'd be like, no, this is the boot for you. Like, this is the one you need. It also fits, like, your voucher, because we had a lot of business companies working with us and stuff like that. But it was just frustrating for her. And I would go back there, and I knew enough to get by, and be like, this one will probably work. If they doubted me, I'd be like, fine, you know, go spend your money on any one of these boots. Like, if you don't want my help, you don't need my help, and whatever. Yeah. So that was kind of, like, her experience, and I felt for her. But she's like, I don't really care. Like, they can take my help or not, and they can question me. It's what's going to happen, like, constantly with her. Mm-hmm. There was another time I was selling men's casual shoes. I'll also say that the most questions we get from men kind of doubting our knowledge was back in the industrial and the boots area, because once you get to, like, casual wear or socks or underwear, that's fine because women dress men. Right? We know what looks good. So they'll take our feedback and our suggestions way more. But I was selling this man some casual footwear, and he asked for my help, and I was helping him, and he basically just started, like, talking about, like, you're really beautiful, all this.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. And I'm there, and I'm like, can I get you another size? I'm so not responding to this. He literally was like, oh, you know what? I should take you back with me to Jamaica. And, you know, I'd show you a good time there. This dude's married. And I'm like, no, I'm okay. How are the shoes? I'm constantly doing this. And this was just it was just happening for so long. And at some point, I should have felt comfortable going to my one male coworker who was working and being like, can you take over this for me? But there's this thing where women, I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, we are not fight or flight. We are freeze and be friendly. Most often than not. That is our reaction to these kind of situations, because we freeze or be friendly because we want to diffuse the situation as best we can so that we're not in danger. Granted, I am obviously like in a building where I work, but I never felt comfortable enough to be like, yo, this person's being terrible, can you just take over this, or like report it to like a manager and stuff like that, because your idea is like, this can't take too long. I get this all the time. I didn't get it all the time. I'm not thinking I'm some hot shit, but you're just like, this is just another instance where I'm just going to, get through this. I'll
basically
tell this guy.
just dealing with it.
Yes.
Because you're like, please let this be over, but also like, I don't want to have to start a conflict of some kind or have to deal with another situation that comes out of this.
And I'm there to make sales. We weren't on commission or anything, so honestly, if that guy bought shoes or not, I wouldn't have cared.
You should have just been like, and there's your size, I'm gonna go work in the back.
Mm-hmm. He also had like a buddy there too, and I'm like, oh, what? Like, it was just so uncomfortable. And I think eventually I did like leave. I was like, okay, you're good, I'm gonna leave. And then I like went to go talk to one of my female coworkers about it.
Ugh.
But I've also had this instance. I was wearing that orange dress just down to like basically below my knees, kind of like mid shin. It's got like that pattern.
I think
it's kind of low, like a deep V, but not too
not
much.
really. Nothing you own is really that deep of a V.
Right. So I'm wearing that dress, and this customer asked me a question, and I'm answering his question, and he is not even subtle. It's a full on like up down, and I'm just like staring at his face the whole time. I'm not asking him a question. I didn't wear that dress super often after that. I'm just like, but why am I like having to censor how I wear when it's like, yeah, you know what? People check people out. Be a little more fucking discreet about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like so blatant. I'm like, I am so uncomfortable right now because like I haven't left your face with my eyes, and I'm answering your question, and you're just full on like, so
rough.
That was just stuff that happens during customer service.
Gross. Just gross and annoying, because I like my dresses. And I bet you like that dress too. But
you don't get to wear them a whole lot, because like summer's like a month in Canada.
Yeah.
Basically, but...
Yeah. But I mean, maybe we should get to the point where like we wear the dresses that we want to wear, and if some guy's like checking out your cleavage, just be like, excuse you, it's all up here in the eyes.
I think it's just also, getting to work was fucking hot outside. I did not want to be wearing pants there, so I'd be like wearing dresses and stuff like that.
Yeah. Anyway,
moving on to Sea-Doos.
This is not work related. This is just like a little life story that really bugged me and still does to this day, because it was very frustrating. Because I love Sea-Doos, okay? I fucking love driving Sea-Doos. Is it driving, riding? I don't know. Commanding a Sea-Doo. Whatever. I love water, anything water sport related, or like just hang out in the water. We were at this family gathering party. It was like a bunch of us and our friends. You weren't in
there
the
yet.
same spot.
Yeah, I was coming up.
Yeah, so some parents were there. The one parent had rented out all these Sea-Doos, and it was me and a bunch of our other guy friends who had all like know this family, been there, done that before, it's great fun every year, Sea-Doos all the time. And there were, I think, 3 Sea-Doos maybe that time, and there were like too many people for the number of Sea-Doos that were available. So we needed some people to take the Sea-Doos down from like the landing spot down to the part of the park that we were actually going to have like the barbecue and whatever. So I was super pumped. I was like, oh man, like some pre-Sea-Doo time. I was so excited. I was like, this is last year, like the parent who was overseeing all of this, I was like, it's happening. It's happening.
And keep in mind, I was not there because I wanted to sleep in. Wendy and the 3 other of our guy friends went early so they could get an extra Sea-Dooing time. I think there was only 2. I only think they ever rent 2.
Oh,
so
that's why I didn't get to go. I was like, why didn't I just hop on the back of one of them? But there were only 2. Okay, that makes sense. Basically, I was like, I got up early to be able to go on this Sea-Doo, and I was already gonna let our other like female friend go because it was her first time at one of these like gatherings, and she hasn't had the experience yet. So I was like, okay, whatever, for sure you should go. But then like as soon as we got down there, the parent was like to the guys, oh, you guys have like driven the Sea-Doos before, so you guys go ahead and take them down. I'm like, I didn't even enter into the conversation. Mm-hmm. He was like, yeah, you guys were on them last year. Like, it's fine. I was like, I was on them last year, too. Like,
I'm pretty sure you hadn't gotten on a Sea-Doo by the time I got there, so you could have slept in as long as I did.
I mean, it's just like a little thing, but I was completely overlooked in favor of the guys because of what reason? I don't know. I'm just
such
saying.
a male thing to know and remember how to use Sea-Doos. Women can't keep things in their brain, and honestly, the parent probably forgot that you were even there last year.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Well, I did say, like, after he said that, I was like, oh, I was here last year too. And then, that was completely ignored, so it's fine.
I've already offered it to the men.
Oh, can't go back on my word now because I'm a man. Anyway, so that was just like a little life thing, and those things happen somewhat frequently. I wouldn't say a lot because I don't think they happen a lot, but they do happen, and whenever they happen, it just makes me super pissed because I'm like, what, where, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Just because I'm a girl?
I'm not surprised with the individual. I'm not gonna lie.
We're not naming any names.
We won't name any names, but
Kim knows who I'm talking about.
I'm not surprised that, like, it's happened many times before that, or I've experienced it, so.
Yeah. And, like, no hate for our guy friends. They were just out for a good time, too. Like, it's not a big deal. It's just, if he had been like, oh,
you three were on it last year. Who wants to go on it? Yeah.
Take your pick, rock, paper, scissors, whatever. I would have been like, you know what? It's cool. But the fact that I was completely ignored.
Oh, it's a huge thing, right? You just want to be considered in the conversation.
Yeah.
We're not saying we have to be the ones.
Yeah.
But being considerate is the first... Sorry. Being considered is the first step.
Yes.
So, we're going to move on to...
Oh, boy.
So, I'm going to go with guys I was seeing. I wouldn't even consider dating. And the first guy, I'm not using any of their real names. I'm going to use fake names. I was never even seeing in terms of romantic relationship. So, the first guy I'm going to call Mark. I met him around the end of first year. I was looking for a sublet for my new place because I wasn't going to be there for the summer. And this is how I met him, and I regret ever trying to sublet, honestly. So, he, I think, was new to Guelph. And yeah, he just wanted a place, and he came to check it out, and I guess he liked talking with me because I don't know what it is, but they always mask it in they want to be friends, but then they accelerate it, like, instantly to they want something else. So he asked me to lunch, and I was like, okay, to talk about possibly subletting, and, like, he just wants to talk, fine. Granted, I'm, like, 21, I don't date a whole lot, and especially not up till that point, so maybe I wasn't good at picking up the hints, but I was also still very direct when I was at that age. So I go have lunch with him, and he says he's not going to take the room. I'm like, that's fine. He's like, did you still want to, like, hang out? I think we could be great friends and stuff like that. And I was like, sure. This guy was, I don't even know his age. I never know the ages of these guys, apparently. So he was probably at least 6 years, maybe 7 years older than me, which is fine. That age gap does not deter me. So, he starts like, hey, do you want to go do this or this? And we'll go eat out a lot. And he's always saying, oh, let me pay. And I was like, no. I was very upfront. I was like, we're just friends. I can pay for my own food. He's like, oh, well, back in my culture, women don't pay. I'm like, well, this is Canada, and I'm going to pay for my own food. Sometimes he would still end up paying because, my goodness, trying to argue
Fight
that
for
point
that bill is
I'm all
sometimes...
like, fine, you want to pay for me? That's fine. There was just times where I was so upfront with him, and even in messaging and texting, and I was like, hey, please don't text me this. One time he showed up to my res. I was studying, so it wasn't summer yet, but he showed up to my res, but he kind of like, he warned me he was coming. At first he was all like, hey, what are you doing? Like, I'm studying. I can't really do anything right now. But that's also me, like, at this point, he's texted me kind of meh things, so I know what he wants. I'm not stupid. I'm 21. I know what's happening, and so I'm just trying to be really nice about it, but also very direct. It's like, no, I'm studying, blah, blah. He's like, oh, you're probably not eating though. I'll pick up some food and a bottle of wine. Literally, we are just eating food and drinking wine in, like, my res dorm, like, lounge
Common
area, common
yeah.
area. And, you know, it's whatever, we're talking, and then he leaves, but, like, he would get drunk, not around me, but he would get drunk, and then he'd text me things. And I'm like, dude, you can't be texting me this. Like, but it was just, it wasn't super explicit, but it was just obvious that he's like, he wants me. And I'm just like, you can't be texting me this, or we can't be talking anymore. Eventually, I did completely sever it after I went home for the summer. Like, I made it really, really easy. But I'm just like, you never wanted to be just friends, so don't pretend it's that. And then also just trying to, like, I hate people paying for my dinner, especially if it's a potential, like, romantic interest, because I hate owing anyone anything.
It's also, it changes the power dynamic in the relationship immediately.
And that's actually, so that's kind of just a very brief rundown of, I ended up talking about this with 3 other people around the same time it was kind of like ending. Just
never while it's happening.
They were reading like, I was like, can you see these texts? They're on my old phone, so I can't even, like, I don't have receipts right now. But I was just like, they're like, what the fuck, Kim? I was like, what is happening? How'd you get yourself into this? I'm like, I just was looking for a sublet. So that happened. I honestly never talked to him again. He randomly tried to Facebook message call me. Like,
oh, that was fairly recently.
I know, like a month ago. And I was all like, what? I didn't pick it up because I'm like, no.
Okay.
That's kind of it in a nutshell. So guy number 2, I'm going to call him Gabe.
Yeah, this was, what, like
2 years ago, I feel like. So I met this guy at a Italian, like, festival, because Guelph has a pretty, like, high, like, Italian population, and so they always have this festival, and one of my coworkers, the sweetest lady, she was probably like 60, yes. She's so sweet, and she's told me about it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll totally come check it out. So I end up talking to this guy, and we're talking just fine, and he asked me for my number. He's like, I don't really have a lot of, I just moved here. This happens to me. I just moved here, and I don't have a lot of friends, and I think we're talking pretty, like, well, and at this point, I'm like, what? 24, 25. I kind of get that it's not maybe just friendship, but I was all like, talked with him just fine, like,
potentially,
might as well.
Why not?
So I gave him my number and all that stuff, and so he's like, oh, let me know when you can meet up for, like, a coffee or lunch. So I told him the next day, like, I can do this day or this day, and it turned into, one of my days was Friday. He's like, let's just make it dinner. I'm all like, okay, we're just really gonna
right into date mode. Okay.
Right into date mode, I guess. So I was like, you know what, fine, I'm gonna give him a chance. I don't know a whole lot about him, but, you know, he called me, we talked on the phone. I'm not really a big phone talker, but, you know, we gotta put the effort in every once in a while, so I did that. Yeah, so we go on this date, essentially, and so we're talking, and it was at the Keg, and right when he said the Keg, I'm all like, damn that bill, and he's gonna insist on paying for it, and it's just gonna be a thing. But anyway, I went. The date conversation wasn't the best. I was getting a feeling, it's like, this probably won't go any further. Mm-hmm. He definitely liked me way more. So he felt good about the date. But we'd been drinking quite a bit. I think we did like a shot, and then he had like a drink or blah, blah, blah. So we get into his car. I probably shouldn't have gotten to his car. First of all, get into his car and just no consent whatsoever. It was very sneak attack kiss, whatever. I went with it. He's like, oh, do you want to go downtown or what? Go to a movie? So we would go downtown, probably drink more at like a bar. I'm like, this is like 11 at night. I'm like, dude, this
is why you have to tell your roommates when these things happen. He could have gone girled you.
I know.
No, that's the wrong one. He could have lovely bones you.
That's so true. I know. I need to do better at that.
But I still don't.
So, or he's like, do you want to go see a movie? The Keg is right beside the movie theater. And I'm like, I don't know how drunk you are right now. I don't really want to be driving a very long length.
Yeah.
And also I was all like, I wanted the date to be over, but we ended up going to see Spider-Man Homecoming, and I paid for it.
I mean, the theater was right
there. And I'm like, this is the friendly and free situation of me, who's in this car with this guy, who clearly just wants to make out right after the dinner, which is like, whatever, his move, I guess. And
his non-consensual move.
Yes. I went with it. Yeah, so we went to go see a movie. And I paid for it. He was going to pay for it again. I'm like, no, we were not paying for this. You just paid for the Keg. And we definitely, that was a hefty bill. And maybe I need to get more comfortable with people just paying for me if they say they want to.
Don't. Like, whatever makes you comfortable, people should respect that.
That happens, and then he drops me off, make it on the, you know, the doorstep or whatever, and I leave, and it's whatever. So basically, I'm talking with him for the next, like, 2 weeks. We're not really able to meet up, but I'm trying to find a way to break it off. It might have actually only been a week. Because why would I wait that long? I talked to you about it. Problem was his birthday was coming up, and I was all like, I need to do this now, or whatever. So he messaged me, I think I was at Ben's for like a hangout in Mississauga, and he messages me, and I'm all like, I really can't talk right now. I'm with a friend in Mississauga right now. And so I do that, and I text him, I think the Sunday night. I'm like, hey, can I call you after my shift? Because I was working at the Tim Hortons at the university. And I just need to talk to you about something. And he said, oh, I hope you're not going to break up with me. One, I wouldn't actually even consider it breaking up because I wouldn't say we were really officially dating.
One date.
One date. We've talked in the phone, but like I've known you for like 2, maybe 3 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
And I just kind of left it on random. Like, I can't do this over text right now. So I come home and I had to make it really quick because I had to like shower, get ready because I was going to Stratford, which with Ben as well. And so he knew that I had like hung out with Ben on the weekend and I was hanging out with Ben that night. But I was like, hey, so I need to talk to you. And I called him because I felt like that was a nice thing to do. I don't know. Didn't want to see him face to face because what was the point? Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing how guilt trippy some guys get when you're like breaking it off. And I'm telling him the reason. He was nice enough. Just I felt weren't compatible and I just didn't feel it, and I think not wasting his time is a good reason. Yeah. But he starts going on about like, oh yeah, I got the sense and you were with like hanging with like this other guy, blah blah blah, and I'm all like, why are you making up a reason? Why are you making up a fake reason?
I just gave you the reason.
But he didn't want to hear the reason because that's rejection on who he is. I get that's what people do. I'm just like, okay. And then he kind of guilts me. And I got guilted because he's like, oh yeah, it's too bad because I just moved to Guelph. I don't know many people and I like was looking for friends. And I'm thinking like,
you're not looking for friends.
You're not looking for friends. Like, don't guilt me into this. But I got guilted. I was like, hey, so how about you take a week and actually think on your feelings? Because if you can't look at a future where we're not somehow dating, this ain't gonna work. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I think he called me like 3 weeks later. But I was hiking and I didn't pick up. And then yeah, I just left it at that. And
it's fine.
He messaged me on like Christmas, but I had deleted him from my contacts. I was like, I don't know who this is. I was like, Merry Christmas too. And then he said something else. I'm like, oh. This is Gabe.
Forgot your fake name.
I forgot the fake name. I had to look for it. So I hate it because like I didn't feel comfortable being all like, I'm going to go take a bus now. I didn't feel comfortable like ending the date. Mm-hmm. I got guilt tripped. I hate it because I'm being very direct. And for some reason, I have been demonstrated that guys want women to be direct and not play head games. And I've done that in these 3 examples. But it always comes down to they don't want to hear it, I guess. Yeah. So that was Gabe.
Oh, boy.
Just dealing with that. And then guy 3. Again, I would not consider what we were doing was dating, although I did give this individual longer time. I'm going to call him Steven.
Steven.
And you read the text.
Yep.
I was being very direct right from the get-go.
Yep.
I knew initially that he wanted to look for a relationship, and so I knew that going into it. I wasn't thinking he wanted friends and then something else. But, and I was like, sure, you know, I think he's cute. He's cute. Mm-hmm. I'll go for it. The whole time I told him, yo, I'm really low maintenance and I'm really busy right now. So you might not see me for a week. Mm-hmm. So if you're not okay with that, like that's going to be an issue. And he kept reaffirming like, no, I don't want to like take away from what your life is. And, you know, we'll meet up when we meet up. And I think that's fair to not see each other constantly. But this also might lead into the idea I was not as into him as he was into me. Mm-hmm. And like when you're like connecting with someone, you want to see them.
Yeah.
More. But maybe I'm just someone who just takes things slower.
Yeah.
I just, you know, like to gauge who this person is before I like dive head mm-hmm. first. Okay, there was a text that he sent me. I was I was going to end whatever we had anyway, but he sent me a text. I called him out for it because it was really like passive aggressive, I think, in what he was telling me, and then I called him out on it, and then he kind of backtracked, and it's like the subtle manipulation behind it, because he's taking what his, I think, his initial meaning was, and then being all like, oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. Why would you take it like that?
Yeah.
And it just kind of became this
was
thing.
about how he didn't feel like you were giving enough time.
I wasn't
into the
prioritizing him.
Right?
But I legit told him that he, like, it kind
you
of
were warned. What did you expect?
He wanted more prioritization because he felt a different way than I did, and he basically thought I was trying to fill my life with things because I was trying to run from other traumatic experiences. Not this takeout, obviously the past few guys I've had in my past. That is not how it always happens. These are just like...
But also, those are not traumatic experiences for you.
Yeah.
They were just guys who didn't work out and you didn't vibe with them, and for some reason he made this assumption. I think that's what is very annoying, that you were super busy, you had a lot of things going on in your life outside of him, and for some reason he read that as, oh, she's trying to run away from like potential love and, you know, this relationship
like I'm
that
closing
we
myself
could
off.
have.
Yeah.
And you're like pushing him out for these reasons, and just like, bitch, I'm just busy. Calm your tits.
Yeah. One final thing that just kind of comes up, I think, in general life is the whether women wear makeup or not and what that is for. Whether women want to wear makeup or not, it's just completely their choice. They're not necessarily doing it for any one person. It could be very much like they want to look fancy, they want to do something with their eyes for themselves. So the assumption that women want to hear that they look beautiful without makeup on is not correct. Maybe there's women out there who probably do. I am not one of those women. I think it's just, don't ever assume that someone's trying to hide something because they're wearing makeup. They want to do something. They want to express themselves, maybe artistically with their face. That's what they're feeling. And maybe that's what they do every single day, and that's fine. Or maybe someone doesn't wear makeup because they don't know how to do it, and that is me. And also, it's expensive, and I'm just not for that yet. I'm getting older, though. I'll probably maybe
You've
start
got
learning.
the bottom jeans. You'll probably be fine for another 30 years.
Maybe.
To give you guys some context, the reason Kim is talking about why girls choose to decide to wear makeup or not wear makeup, Steven, our man Steven,
We're really
sent
ripping
a
on Steven
message,
today.
just like amongst other problematic things that went on in his text. I think he at one point was talking about how first, you look beautiful without makeup, blah blah blah, and he made a comment about how he feels that maybe this is better than other girls who wear makeup to mask insecurities, and just like very loaded assumptions.
Women want to mask their insecurities of their face to feel more confident out in the world. Fine, do that. Who cares?
Just
maybe not for anybody.
This comment was just so out of nowhere, and is just.
And I was going to address it because that's what I was doing with this individual. I did not shy around saying what I felt, but at this point, I think I was just exhausted from having to maybe correct or educate.
Yeah.
We don't have to like rag on him.
Oh, I'm gonna, because I haven't heard, like, I'm sure that he had his good moments, which is why you initially wanted to try this out anyway.
Yeah.
But just from what I've seen, a lot of his ideas were pretty problematic.
And this is not to say that we're going to rag on these individuals because we find that what they're doing is maybe problematic or they should learn from this. And I'm saying that I'm always constantly trying to learn how to be a better person with many things. So this seems to be like, I am the shining beacon of everything that is correct. Obviously there's things that I have to work through, but I just hope that these men that I have been seeing in the past just kind of learn to listen and educate themselves.
Yeah, listening is a very key point.
So that is the little bit of like misogyny I've kind of been dealing with in past individuals.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I think I'm just going to do a fire round in the dating/men realm because I have 2 stories. They're very quick. I was dating neither of these men. One of the instances was probably one of my earliest memories of something sketchy between like me and another male person. It was a high school dance where we had kind of like a high school mixer where people from another high school came to our school and we just had like a good old high school dance in the gym, you know? And everyone was like super pumped because it's not often that this happened, and everyone got dressed up and I was excited to go with my friends. It was not at the age yet where like you went to dances with dates. At that point, good old innocent Wendy, I was just getting ready with my friends. I was going to go to the dance with my friends and dance with my friends. That's how young we were. And we got there, and there was one instance where I was just going up the stairs from the gym, and this other guy from another school that I had never seen or met before was coming down the stairs, and he was with his like little friend group, and I was with my little friend group, and I was like in the front. And as we were passing by each other on the stairs, he just reached out his arm and caressed me all across the front of my body as he was walking by. And, you know, that was a long time ago. This was when we were in high school, so society wasn't as outspoken about this kind of issue, but that's just not a good lookout. You know, that speaks volumes to the type of education on what is appropriate and inappropriate behavior that was going on in teenage males, because clearly it wasn't happening. So like this kind of behavior, not acceptable at any time. We were in high school. Like, oh my God, that's disgusting. So rapid fire round number 2. This was 2 years ago at my own birthday. We were just a group of friends all out having so much fun. It was super cute. My friend, very good friend in Toronto, had planned for us to go to this like cool club, and it was like an awesome experience. I had so much fun. We had drinks beforehand. We got there. One of the other guys who came is a longtime friend of mine. We had known each other since close to the time when our families immigrated to Canada. Yeah, so it was someone who I had known since elementary school. Essentially, someone I trusted and felt like I was kind of in like a bro relationship with, because we had known each other for so long, and every time we got together, it was like him talking about like girls and me talking about guys, and it was just like a very bro-y type of relationship. I've never felt any kind of like romantic spark between us. Anyway, he was there at this birthday party that my good friend planned for us to like go out to the club, and at the club it was very traumatizing because we were just dancing together. I was fairly drunk and I needed some physical support. We were just dancing face to face, and my arms were around his head, and not his head, like around the back of his neck. And I was just like kind of leaning there to make sure that I didn't fall over because the pre-drink was strong, aka I had maybe like a glass of wine. And he started groping my ass. And I told him to stop, and he did not. And he continued to grope even further into the privy area. And I was like, you can't do this. Please stop. And he said, you like it. God, even saying it now is just like, what is happening? What happened? So then he kept doing it, and then I bit him real hard on the shoulder, and then I left and I went to find my friend because I lost her at the club. And it was terrible. It was a bad time. He was someone that I really trusted.
We thought you were good friends with?
And that I felt like we had like a mutually respectful relationship with. At that point, he knew I was engaged. I had told him. Like, we were friends. We had talked and like hung out prior to this club situation. So it was very, very not okay. So friendship over. Very, very over, and I never want to see him again. So those are my men stories, none of whom I dated, all of whom I have serious problems with. Gross, yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Right,
I think
so
we
we're
want to
gonna-
move on to like some positive.
We're just going to briefly go through positives, because
Yes.
we know we've been talking for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall, Wendy and I feel the same way. The male friends we've made in our undergrad, like some in your undergrad, in my undergrad, and she met them in her master's, they're maybe not always perfect. They are very good most of the time, but they're also very receptive.
Mm-hmm.
They will listen. They will look at what their actions have meant. But again, I haven't come across too many instances where I had to like
Call
say
them out
something
for
or call them
something, yeah.
out, which has been super nice. It just, you have the maybe negative interactions we've had with men, and then you just have like an overwhelming positive ones because of the male friends we've made and surround ourselves with, and that's really awesome.
Yeah.
I do have very positive
Yeah. And
male
I think we
relationships.
wouldn't surround, especially with our friends, we wouldn't surround ourselves with openly sexist people or people who inadvertently do a ton of sexist things. But also,
I drop those people pretty fast.
Yeah.
I give them like some chance for maybe some time, like a bit, and then I'm like, oh well, no, it's too much.
Yeah.
Bye.
And then the only thing that I had to add for our like positive ending of the episode story is my husband didn't grow up in North America, and the dialogue surrounding sexism and misogyny is very different in China compared to North America. When we first started talking about feminism and sexism together, it was very clear that he had been exposed to a lot of the negative side of extreme feminists who really are not striving for equality. They're basically like hating men for being men, which is not the goal of feminism. Over time, me being able to share little stories with him, like some of the ones that we've talked about today, and showing him and describing instances where these little things happen to women, and that is why feminism is important and it's an issue that we want to talk about. But I'm glad that he's been very open and receptive to looking at feminism in a different way, because before, I think, like, if anyone had told him they were a feminist, he would have been like, oh, like, you're one of the crazies, and that's not true. Like, a lot of
The word feminism gets a really negative connotation attached to it, and that's not true.
Yeah, so I guess this whole episode is just, one, kind of want to rant a little bit about the little things that we've had to deal with and sometimes still have to deal with.
And that many women are dealing with the same stuff in customer service
Yeah.
and with some guys that they're maybe having a relationship with and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think it's important for us to talk about these things in a way that is not being exclusive. Like, women aren't better than men and men aren't better than women. We're different, but we deserve equal treatment. That's all we're saying, you know?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Nudity. If you want to listen to this episode and other episodes, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And then if you want a video version, that's on YouTube. And you can find us on Instagram at Nudity Podcast. That's it. Bye.
Bye.